Okay, let's go over a couple law of sines and law of cosines problems. So first, let's recall the law of sines, which says sine of A, angle A. So I'll do angles in capitals and sides in lowercase, and I'll normally refer to them as big A and little a. So sine of angle A versus side A, that ratio has to be the same as the sine of angle B versus side B, which has to be the same ratio as sine of angle C versus side C. So when you are given a triangle that you're trying to solve, what you want to do, the easiest way for me to organize the information, I know it comes as a triangle, but I like to organize it in a chart. And I'll show you why in a second. I put this in the discussion at some point, but let me show you why. A, B, C, baby A, baby B, baby C. Okay, so I like to put the information into a chart like this because you're going to use the law of sines when you have a complete row in your chart. So if you have big A and little a, or if you have big B and little b, or if you have big C and little c, you can use the law of sines. Now remember, the angles add up to 180. So if you're just missing one angle, you can just use subtraction basically to get it. Okay, but anytime that you have big A and little a, or big B with little b, or big C with little c, you're going to use the law of sines. Okay, so let's try it. Here's my triangle A, B, and C. I know that angle A is 76 degrees, angle C is 56 degrees, and side B is 41 degrees, and then they give you a picture. And the main part about this picture is that angle A opens up to side A. Angle B opens up to side B, and angle C opens up to side C. And they just want you to know that that's how it's labeled. But I'm going to put the information in a chart. So I'm going to say angle A is 76 degrees. Side A, well, I don't know. They didn't tell me that. Angle B, I don't know. Side B, I do know, it's 41. Angle C, they told me, is 56 degrees. And side C, I don't know. So to solve this triangle, I have to find these three things: angle B, side A, and side C. So now you're probably thinking, well, we don't have a full row of anything. We don't have two matching letters. But remember that your angles have to add up to 180 degrees. So I know that angle B is the missing part. So let's say that 76 plus 56 plus big B has to equal 180. So we'll do 76 plus 56, 76 plus 56, which makes 132. So 132 plus B has to equal 180. So we'll do 180 minus 132 to get angle B. So 180 minus 132 is 48. So angle B equals 48, and that's something that I had to solve for, but now I have it. And check it out. Now I have an entire row, right? A big B and a little b. So I'm going to use this, I can't spell, sorry. I'm going to use this in my law of sines to find the other sides. For example, I know that the sine of big B, 48, versus the side B, 41, has to be the same exact fraction or the same exact ratio as the sine of 76 degrees versus baby A. Now, when you read the law of science, sometimes the book or the explanation will flip it over. But really, if you just remember, one way, then it will work out in the math. So here we have a proportion and we need to solve for A. So I'm going to crisscross multiply here. So I get A times the sine of 48 degrees equals 41 times the sine of 76 degrees. Notice I haven't put anything in my calculator because I know that when I do sine of 48 degrees or sine of 76 degrees, I'm going to get a decimal. And I don't want decimals yet. I'll do it all at the same time. So now lastly, to get A alone, I have to divide by the sine of 48 degrees. So to find A, let me see how much room I have here. Okay, so A has to equal 41 times the sine of 76 degrees, big divides the sine of 48 degrees. Now, you have to make sure that you're using a calculator which is in degree mode. Okay, you need your calculator in degree mode, not in radian mode. So, I'm going to type this into my calculator. I'm going to do 4 times the sine of 76. And that gives me a decimal, 3.88 stuff, but I'm going to keep it on my screen, and then I'm going to hit divided by the sine of 48 degrees, and I get okay. So that gave me 5 point something, but I need to actually do 41. I miscopied it. So 41 times the sine of 76. So I'm going to do that in my calculator. And what I get is 53.532129 stuff. There's lots of stuff after that. And the directions say round to the nearest tenth. So tenth is here, and when you round, you look to the right. If it's 0 to 4, you keep it as 5. If it's 5 or higher, you bump it to 6. So here we're going to keep the 5. So we would say side A is 53.5. Now let's use the law of sines again to do side C. So let me get a different color for that. We'll do it in purple. So for side C, I would say the sine of 48 degrees, big divides 41, equals the sine of 56 degrees, big divides C. And so we're going to do the same crisscross applesauce here. We're going to cross them over. So that gives me C times the sine of 48 degrees equals 41 times the sine of 56 degrees. So to get C alone, I have to divide by the sine of 48. So C equals 41 sine of 56 degrees, big divides, sine of 48 degrees. So again, I'm going to do that in my calculator, and each step is going to give me a bunch of decimals, and I'm just going to keep that decimal on the screen and continue the math. So I have sine of 56, that's a big, long, crazy number, times 41 divided by the sine of 48, and I get 45.73878 stuff. There's stuff after it. but I'm only rounding to the nearest tenth. So I look to the right. The next digit is a 3, so I'm going to keep, and my C value is 45.7. So anytime you're doing a triangle problem, if you make a chart, you look to see if you have big and little of the same letter. Okay, let's try another one. This next one is a word problem, which is everyone's favorite. Okay, so Charmaine and Lamar are standing on a riverbank 120 meters apart at points A and B respectively. See the figure. Lamar is 210 meters from a house located across the riverbank. At point C, suppose that angle A, angle BAC, is 52 degrees. What is the measure of angle B, angle ABC? Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So let's draw this picture without all the shenanigans here. So this one is labeled A, this one is labeled B, and this one is labeled C. We know this is 120. We know this is 210, and we know this guy is 52 degrees. And what they're asking us for is angle B. This is what they want here. But I'm still gonna set up a chart so I can see what I have, because even though I know personally this is law of science, you don't. You got to know how to figure that out. So let's use my chart trick and say angle A is 52 degrees. And side A, that would be, remember, it opens up. So this is side A. So side A is 210. And then angle B is something we don't know. And side B, we don't know either. And then angle C, we don't know. But then side C over here is 120. So, how are we going to figure this out? The one thing that we need, so we're not solving the whole entire problem. The one thing that we need is angle B. And what I see in my chart is that I've got a full row. I've got big A and little a. So I can use that. But I don't have baby B. So I can't use sine A over A and then sine B over B because I don't have one of the B's. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to start with my sine of 52 degrees over 210. But I'm going to have to figure out C first. So I'll say sine of C over 120. So now this has a tiny bit different solving because now the angle is what we're looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate sine of C. So I'm not going to crisscross. I'm just going to cross up the 120, and that will get the sine of C alone. So I have 120 times the sine of 52 degrees over 210 has to equal the sine of C. So again, let me do this left-hand side of my calculator. And get a decimal, and then we'll use what's called the inverse sine function to get the actual angle value. So I need to do the sine of 52 times 120 divided by 210. So I have that the sine of C is equal to 0.45029118, and there's stuff after that. So you want to keep that decimal in your calculator and you want to do sine inverse of that number, 0.450291 dot 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 will equal C. So I'm going to put that in my calculator. And it's really easy because in my calculator, I've got the decimal up and I just hit second and then sine inverse. And it tells me 26.7624 stuff equals C. And we're rounding our answer to tenths. So I'll break at the 10th spot. And then 6 tells me to bump up the 7. It's a bump. So C will be 26.8 degrees. Now you're probably thinking, well, how in the world does that help me with B? But remember, these guys have to total 180 degrees, right? If I add them up, it makes 180. So I know that 52 plus 26.8 plus B has to equal 180 degrees. And again, that's just an adding, subtracting problem. So I'll add 26.8, sorry. So I have 78.8 plus B equals 180. And now I have to subtract from 180, so I have B equals 101.2. So my B angle is 101.2 degrees. And that is what they were asking for, right? What is the measure of angle B? The measure of angle B is 101.2. So anytime that you have big A and little a, or big B and little b, or big C and little c, you can use the law of sines to solve your triangle. And if you're solving for an angle, right, when you use your sine inverse button, you would check to see if there's a second angle that goes along with it. That was that side angle rule. Okay, so let me just show you that since we're here. We didn't actually need it, but just in case you need it, let me show you. So when we did sine inverse of 0.45029 stuff in our calculator, we got 26.8 degrees. And if you think about a unit circle here, that means that this angle is 26.8 degrees, and its y value, so its height up here, is 0.45 stuff. But there's another angle on this left side that has that same height, and it references 26.8 degrees. So to find that second angle, you would take 180 minus the 26.8. So 180 minus 26.8 degrees makes, I'm sorry, I have to pull up my calculator here. 180 minus 26.8 is 153.2 degrees. So angle C is either 26.8 or it's 153. But in this case, it can't be 153. And the reason is because angle A was 52 and your angles have to add up to 180. And if you put both of those in, it will add up to 200, and so that means that this is not really feasible. But anytime you use your sine inverse button, so if you use,
Sorry.
that's okay.
getting
Sorry,
water.
my husband is getting water out of the machine right next to me. I told him to be quiet. So if you use the sine inverse button, you should check for a second angle. And that second angle would always be 180 minus what you've got. Okay, and then sometimes there's two triangles with the setup. Sometimes there's one triangle with the setup. Sometimes there's no triangles with this setup. But since it's a word problem, it normally is pretty straightforward.